exactly the same. But we haven't done that since World War II, and we're going to spend a lot of time on this issue. But they do it by getting around it. We don't have any constitutionally declared wars anymore.
Because
So
we're not
why is Congress funding these wars?
Because you're letting them get away with it.
Yeah.
because
And
you're not
letting
the
them get away
sovereign.
with it.
But
And
you don't know that
Sister
you're the
Lothmiller's
sovereign.
letting them. I mean,
You know that.
we as a whole are letting them get away with it.
Yep.
Remember when George Washington said, I remind us again, we the people are the last guardians of the Constitution. He said, because these guys won't do it. The Constitution limits them. It gets in their way. This guy won't do it because it limits him. It gets in his way of his political agenda. And these guys won't do it. Even if they have lifetime tenure, they're politicians to begin with. That's the reason they're in there. They have an agenda. And they won't do it. It gets in their way. It cramps their style. And so he says, we the people are the last guardians of the Constitution. And if we don't do it, then they do whatever they darn well please. They declare
why
wars.
do we let them get away with it?
Why do we let them do it?
Because we're uneducated?
Because we're uneducated. We don't understand the Constitution in the first place. We don't take time and get involved. And it's tough. I'm not saying
You got to
this
be
is
like Rudy at Commissioner's Court on a higher level.
going up there to Commissioner's Court and saying, Joel Baker, you pervert, because of the perversions, the things that we know he's done. He's admitted to.
You're attacking the integrity
Joel
of the
Baker.
court, sir, and your time has been forfeit.
Yeah. And it's
Not
tough
really.
to do. I mean, if any of you have gotten involved in politics, unless you're going along with the leadership on a local, state, or national level, if you're trying to raise a stink and you're not just going along with the leadership, you're going to be treated like somewhat of a kook. And it takes some courage. You know the old Norman Rockwell deal that's got the World War II veteran, and he's sitting there in his flight jacket, and he's standing up, you know. That's what we have to do. And if there's only one person doing it, then it's really tough. But if there's 2 or 3 people in a row at County Commissioner's Court and they're standing up doing it, then Joel Baker looks like an idiot. He keeps saying the law says you shouldn't say negative things about the Commissioner's Court. It looks like he's hiding behind it, yes.
It's amazing too that the founding fathers very early on started reminding the citizens, it's your job to keep an eye on us. They knew it. They knew what would happen if we took our eye off.
And that's what this is all about here.
Exactly.
And again, I say it's not easy. Heck, you got a job, you got babies to feed, and you've got you're a mother, you're a father, you've got a business that you're trying to make work, and so on. And so not everybody is going to run for Congress, but we can get out door to door in some cases if we really feel strongly about someone. We can lobby in the legislatures. We can send letters and so on. We can support someone for the local state Senate race or the state House of Representatives. We can run for Board of Education. I don't know why more people don't run for Board of Education. People run for City Council, which there's no payment for that, but they don't. You can't hardly get anyone to run for a state board of education, and those are the guys that are deciding whether or not we're going to have these crazy textbooks or some decent textbooks in our schools locally. And it's a big, so we all have to find. All I say is it's different for all of us, but we need to find some way in our lives to be involved on a greater or lesser level. And there's a time and a place for everything. Sometimes we have more time to do it, and other times all we have time to do is come to a Constitution class, and learn about something. I applaud everybody that's here for doing that, and because what this is about is learning about our system. It's learning about the rule of law and determining whether or not we're going to find a way to stand up for it here in America. There's not a single one of us here that, if we're honest with ourselves, doesn't admit to ourselves we are blessed to be in America. You can say what you want to say. It's the biggest. It's the worst country in the world, except for every other country in the world. And it's the one that has created this prosperity and freedom for all of us. And it's the U.S. Constitution that has done it. How did it work? This 12-page document. It's the shortest of all the major nations. Kenya just did one. It's 198 pages. Pretty good constitution, by the way. And they quote in there God-given unalienable rights. I've never seen that in another constitution before. Kenya did this about just a few years ago. 198. Okay. We're running out of time, and I wanted to get through some of these. I don't want you to feel like we've got to get through the whole Constitution this time, but I wanted to hit some of these just so you see them. So you see that we're in Article 1, Section 8. Article 1, Section 8, we're going to have a whole thing on just federalism, which is Article 1, Section 8 versus the 10th Amendment. Article 1, Section 8 is the lawmaking powers of Congress, and therefore the areas of jurisdiction that our national government can be involved in. And then the 10th Amendment says everything else is reserved to the states, who had 100% of the power to begin with. And so that's our federal system, which is being ignored in Congress every single day now. But the very last clause in there is it's the necessary and proper clause. Some people call it the elastic clause, or the well, it's because it says, let's read it, and you'll understand this better than presidents, better than speakers of the House and the Senate and everything else. It says this is the 18th clause, that Congress shall have power to make all laws which shall be necessary and proper for carrying into execution the foregoing powers, meaning to carry out the previous 17 clauses, the previous 17 powers or so that we gave to the national government. It doesn't say that they shall have power to make laws that will be necessary and proper for a good country. It says only for carrying out these previous ones. So it means, in other words, Congress says, well, we want to have I'll give you an example. McCulloch v. Maryland was tested, the necessary and proper clause. In McCulloch v. Maryland, you had, here's the Potomac River, and here's Washington, D.C., and Congress decided that they wanted to have a national bank back under Alexander Hamilton, and they put one of the bank buildings over here in Maryland. Here's Maryland, here's Virginia, and it put it here in Maryland. Maryland said, well, that's fine, but you got to pay state taxes. You put a business in our state. And they said, au contraire, we have a constitutional right to have a bank. And they said, where do you have that? And they said the necessary and proper clause. It says we can, in the previous 17, it says we can coin money and regulate the value thereof. We can borrow money on the credit of the United States. We can do banking things. It makes sense for us to have a bank, a national bank, if we want to. And I think the U.S. Supreme Court probably was right. They said, you're right. You do have the right, under the necessary and proper clause, to have a bank, even though it doesn't say that specifically in the foregoing. But it's necessary and proper to carrying out those powers that were listed previously. And so they said Maryland could not tax them because it would chill a constitutional right they have. Pardon?
I would just add not a blank check. It's so mind-boggling when people read that.
It's one of the most abused, that along with the Interstate Commerce Clause. Oh, we'll talk about the Interstate Commerce Clause some more. The ninth one here, I don't see him telling me I've run out of time, but we got a few more minutes here.
1 minute.
Yeah, well, but we'll go beyond this into another one here.
Yeah, okay.
The prohibitions on Congress. This article, you had Article 1, Section 8, which says these are the limited powers that we give to the national government. And then, because they did not know that they were going to have a Bill of Rights, they put in Article 1, Section 9, which limited the national government in 3 ways. It said the privilege of the writ of habeas corpus shall not be suspended. What's that? And then it said no ex post facto and no bills of attainder. Anyone know what habeas corpus is? Habeas corpus is Latin.
Loose the body.
To have the body, yeah, body, like Corpus Christi. Okay, so to have the body. Habeas corpus is the right that you have, this is from Old English law, habeas corpus, to have your body outside of jail, free, unless the government can show probable cause that you've committed a crime. So that's habeas corpus. So if the king throws you in, like he always did back then, just threw him in and throw away the key and so on, then they would file a writ of habeas corpus, your lawyer, and they would say, get his body out of jail. He has the right to have his body out of jail free. The right to habeas corpus. Next was no ex post facto laws. No ex post facto just means that's after the fact. Just the fact that and broke the speed limit out here, you weren't breaking the speed limit.
Speed is sound.
55 or whatever it was. But suppose that then next week they pass a law that says that it's against the law to go over 40 miles an hour here. And then they come to you and say, last week you went 55 miles an hour. And you'd say, well, it wasn't against the law then, but that's what an ex post facto law did. It passed. They did a law after the fact and made you a criminal when you weren't a criminal. So and the king did it all the time. So they said, we're not going to have any ex post facto laws in America. A worse one I thought was bills of attainder. A bill of attainder was something that was passed by Parliament on behalf of people. These people are all criminals. Were always people who opposed the king, by the way. had over 3,000. It just says by parliamentary action. We have courts for, and the rule of law, and no bill. The worst, I think, he was already in jail. You know, the National Bastille, that the French Revolution, so bad. They said they bust out of the Bastille in England and turn himself in to be. Does not do so. Would break out of the Bastille to go get put in prison. He does not do so when we can. Well, that's a lot of insult, and go turn myself in overnight. And they said, we're not going to do that in America. We have the rule of law here. You can't just have politicians using the law. So those three things. Now, if they wouldn't have had to put these in Article 1, Section 9. Inalienable rights, they're in the Bill of Rights. They could have put 3 places where we have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. 3, again, no nobody's better than anybody else in America. 25 of them by my count in the Bill of Rights. Yes.
The honorable judge when you're
Self. Yes,
The
but it
Honorable
doesn't.
Judge, right?
But it is
honorable
that
such and such. That's no
their office is
Mr.
or Esquire
President
for attorneys.
or-
It was Esquire, you know, but that's kind of. But most people say, well, that we're talking about the office. Yeah.
Well, I'm not honorable.
Oh, that's right, of course.
So, talking about all of these different, I think one of the things that Chris Ann earlier, why does this happen? Government overstepping its bounds, even if it's not, click. And that's the main reason why I learned about y'all's faith, because I saw hating, and then we can't do that. So, and I know, mine's the only hard go, and they jailed 170. They were bikers for Christ, they were preachers, and some rough characters, but
Violating.
yeah.
going.
Comitatus, there you go. I, who to this day, Sheriff Larry Smith,
Yeah,
our
no,
Sheriff
I
Larry
saw
Smith, who's something in my county, I'm going to arrest him.
Motorcycle.
Oh, I'm talking about 80 of them there.
But that's how we build the great America.
Stand up for each other and Commissioner's Court, and it takes some guts to county judge cut you off and try that. The more that our legislators, local, state, and national, learn that they have to.
The committee today, Richard Blake is on, and work hours on a month. And,
Yes, please keep
let's
those.
keep
in-
them here,
And if you,
so-
or if you take them with you, please bring them for weeks here, going over.
So we're done.
So we're really done for today. Go back, look at your emails, and look at the